Told you so. Trans activists are now arguing that all children should be put on hormone blockers to protect those very few who may turn out to be transgender. Hey, gullible lefties, still believe this is about protecting minority rights and not about mindlessly transforming every aspect of your children's lives to conform with godless left-wing bigotry? I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we start with a radical suggestion that's no longer radical because we let this stuff continue to fester. A once radical suggestion, which is pretty mainstream now, by a transgender activist to force every single child in the country to take health-destroying puberty blockers until that child decides for him, her, it, or whatever's self that the gender they want to be is out there and available. This is the logical conclusion in a long string of very bad decisions. Now again, is this made the law yet? Nope. Are they likely to get this passed this year in any major state? Nope. Is this the future? Unless somebody finds a way to curb this kind of outrageous abuse of our children? Yep. May not happen now, but it will happen soon. And I hope you see one thing, Mom and Dad. Every single time a liberal progressive says that we have to do this for a minority, we have to do this to protect minority rights, as with gay marriage, right? It's never about that thing. This is not about protecting kids who are gender confused anymore. This is reducing transgender dysphoria to normality, right? The normal state, according to these activists, for children is to be gender confused. And so we're taking traditional masculinity and femininity, male and female, and we're arguing that they are the biological problem. They are what gets in the way of equality. So we're going to elevate transgender theory above actual male and female. We will treat male and female gender identities as abnormal, and we're going to start drugging your children with puberty blocker, hormone transfer therapy, which, as we've already seen and we will see in the course of this show, just how dangerous that is for your kids. But ruining your kids' bodies and health, ruining their intellectual and psychological welfare, all for the fairy tale cause of transgenderism, that's worth the destruction of a generation of kids.
All right, let's get to the specific example that you're referencing. It's a tweet that went out by Lauren McNamara, who's a well-known transgender activist known by followers as Zinnia Jones. And if you look at the little Twitter profile, it's Zinnia, adult demon female. Well, that's good to know. Also, Zinnia lives in Orlando and is a science writer.
There was a time,
science fiction, maybe,
when identifying as a demon might disqualify you.
No.
Not anymore.
You're demon. Now, so as you said, Lauren or Zinnia, I guess, whatever you want to call Zinnia, says that every child, not just those who think they are transgender because they would want puberty blockers to, they want just every kid. Because if not every kid can have it, then, it's not fair. So here's the tweet. If children can't consent to puberty blockers, which pause any permanent changes, even with the relevant professional evaluation, how can they consent to the permanent and irreversible changes that come with their own puberty, with no professional evaluation whatsoever? So the question is, how can you just be a child and grow up?
And go back to that tweet. That's exactly what I just got through saying. Look what they're saying. They're saying that the real problem is normal development. The fact that the human body, by the time you reach puberty, really kicks in, hormones kick in, you become much more male and much more female than you were before along biological lines. That's the sickness.
But we have more. So Jones then says, this is literally a position that permanent changes are fine as long as you're not trans. An inability to offer informed consent or understand the long-term consequences is actually an argument for putting every single cis and trans person on puberty blockers until they acquire that ability.
Look at how discriminatory this is the other way, right? So Zinnia sees no distinction whatsoever between what a healthy, normal body does. And I'm sorry, guys, you can pretend all you want, but a healthy, normal body during puberty makes you more of what you are. It promotes, it allows a woman to menstruate. It allows her to become pregnant. It allows men to produce sperm and semen. This is the way it works. This is a healthy, normal body. You just got through saying that it is unhealthy. And you see no distinction between a normal body doing its normal functions and the intervention of doctors, not even doctors for God's sake, professional evaluators, the interruption of that to prohibit the natural functioning of the body.
And you said natural functioning of the body. Well, Zinnia is a science writer, and Zinnia should believe in the science and biology as they go in the natural process, but that's clearly not the case.
Do scientists actually believe you can be demons now? Is that what they believe? Is this a valid scientific position that Zinnia is a demon?
My science versus your science could be different. But Zinnia also says, which, by the way, you can check her out on YouTube or not, in her blog, Gender Analysis, she's been transitioning for about 5 years, and that's required her to learn a lot about a variety of transgender-related subjects. Now, this is what people do in general. You pick a new hobby or you start doing something and you get really excited about it, and then you got to tell all your friends, and you act like you're the expert of XYZ hobby. Well, in this case, she's pretending like she's the expert now on being trans and that everybody must enjoy trans, or they're just not cool because she clearly likes it and she's superior to all. She is a demon after all. So
I mean, you really can't stress this enough. We've gotten to the point where normal bodies, and I'm using the word normal in every sense of the word. It would be abnormal at the age of 11 or 12 if your body did not kick into overdrive with its hormones. Puberty didn't occur. We would consider the failure of the body to provoke onset puberty would be a huge malfunction in an otherwise healthy body. There is no way you can pretend anymore that this has anything to do with what bodies are, or the very foundation of your transgender ideology, which you say is based on choice, can't be. This is the kind of thing that demonstrates it. And what is the response when this self-identified demon runs smack into a biological problem that there is no obvious answer for? Well, biology has to be denied. Mm-hmm. Science has to be denied. Her identification as a demon. Heaven help you if you misdemon her, I guess. If you refrain from calling her from her transgender demon name. So, and notice this: wife of a dubious pronoun. So this is what you've got going on here, and it is we all know this. Let's America quit pretending that these people deserve our sympathy, they deserve our support, they deserve our love. They need to be called out for what they're doing here. They're demanding that your healthy children be put through the same body-inhibiting, completely unhealthy behavior hormone therapy that the most deluded of children, or I should say the most browbeaten of children, choose at their parents' behest. This is a bridge too far. This whole thing is a bridge too far. They're pushing the bounds of the fairy tale. Someone's got to step up and say, stop it. And if it's not you, Mom and Dad, within a few years, your kids are going to be given this therapy whether you want it or not.
Continuing down this path of talking about trans and puberty blockers and all that with our children, we have an endocrinologist who has spoken out for the detriment of puberty blockers on your bone density specifically in our children. So Dr. Michael Laidlaw of California, he took to Twitter and he talked about a study that's in the works right now showing that giving kids puberty blockers between ages 12 and 15, that, especially if they looked at a study of 12 to 15-year-olds who were gender dysphoric. And they confirmed a massive decrease in bone density of patients relative to their peers. So it's a preprint of the study's article. It's called Short-Term Outcomes of Pubertal Suppression in a Selected Cohort of 12 to 15-year-old Young People with Persistent Gender Dysphoria in the UK. That's a long title. But what it's saying, it hasn't been peer reviewed yet, but what it's finding is that if you took puberty blockers, your bone density has gone way down. Just looking, without even reading what any of the data says, just looking at that chart, you can see something is going down. Something is negative.
Osteoporosis is an old person's disease.
It is an old person's.
And how much more important is it to be 15 and have the bone density of peanut brittle? But as long as you're embracing who you are. And the other thing, this scientific study has not been peer reviewed. Do you think it will be?
Well,
What do you
we'll
think
see.
the odds in the UK?
Somehow it'll poof, be gone.
Or
Well,
if it does get peer reviewed and approved, how soon will that professor, those doctors, be under fire for anti-trans aggression?
Well, the study included 44 patients from the UK's Tavistock and Portman NHS Trust, and it operates the Gender Identity Development Service, GIDS, for children. So they took 44 patients and they took a look at what was happening. So in the tweet that the doctor put out, included the graph just showing the dramatic decrease, as we already saw. The response is the authors were trying to make it sound like it was a positive thing, like what was happening. And Laidlaw says that's not happening. So here's a little science talk, and then we'll get to the, I guess, average speak. There was no change from baseline in spine BMD, bone mineral density, at 12 months, nor in hip BMD at 24 and 36 months. But at 24 months, lumbar spine BMC, the bone mineral content, and BMD were higher than at baseline. And then Laidlaw comes in and he says, that's terrible. Absolutely terrible. He says it indicates a pathologic process. He said this is because of the drop in sex hormones caused by, let's just say, puberty blockers is the science term, which directly poison the pituitary and stops the normal function. That function is to direct girls' ovaries to make estrogen or boys' testicles to make testosterone. So by them being like, well, it seems like it's going here, it's going good, nothing to see here, and he comes and is like, I call BS.
I mean, it's not just that you're puberty blocking. What you are doing, and this study shows it, is you are not just bypassing and blocking puberty. You are invoking menopause.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing.
You literally are taking a healthy body and making it geriatric.
Basically 50.
That's right.
Put it in their 50s. And so what you're seeing, so like, oh, it looks okay. Their bone density is staying the same. Well, if you know anything about your bones, what's supposed to happen is in your teens is when your bones really shoot up and mesh and get all together. And as we learned about babies and adults last week, that babies actually have 300 bones in their body and adults only have like 203. Fun fact. So what he saw is that the bone density, it should not be maintained. That's actually a bad thing. It actually needs to be building, because that after you become in your mid-20s, late 20s, your bones are your bones, and they're just going to start decreasing.
Well, they call it
need to build it first.
Menopause for a reason.
Pause.
You are pausing things, right?
Yes.
And so let's be consistent here. Let's give the trans what they exactly want. Let's give them postmenopausal bodies. Let's just not stop with osteoporosis.
But then we're gonna...
Let's make them incontinent, right? In terms of their urine. Let's also make them, what else? What else?
So now that, okay, we're already calling for like free pads in the bathrooms.
Right.
Now they're going to want free larger pads.
Well, not just
'Cause they're
larger
gonna
pads,
need larger
not
pads.
just diapers because they're going to be dribbling, but you're going to have nothing but dried up sex organs, right? Vagisil instead of.
Are you going to be the spokesman for this? What are you telling me with it?
Vagisil in the what you need is large vats, pump vats of Vagisil in the men's room. Because that's what everything has to go in the men's room, right? Men, you say men don't have vaginas? Don't say that on a college campus. So, all right. So the future clientele is, once we get past COVID, you could have mandatory Vagisil.
Mandatory.
And manginas can be lubricated all across the country. Because, this is what we want. We want to absolutely transform the body from puberty and fertility, and for a real emergence of those gender characteristics that we hate now so much, male and female. We want to get rid of that and go to the postmenopausal woman. Let's get there. Maybe we could have the Golden Girls.
Hey, whoa.
They could be spokespeople for this, right?
Don't bring my ladies into this. Well, if we're going to keep continuing on this, about talking about your children, let's talk about how parents, you have no say at all about your child's health care, potentially in Washington state. Kids are on their own, basically, to make important healthcare decisions in the state of Washington if the 8 sponsors of HB 2288 have their way. The bill is in committee right now, and it's meant to give students even more autonomy, even more about keeping their medical records away from their parents. Now, this actually kind of already has happened in Washington. In January, a bill became law saying that parents aren't really notified as to what's happening with their schools in the healthcare, but now that they want that the healthcare centers to be actually right there on campus for the students, so they don't even have to like go off campus or do anything. It's everything's hush hush.
I remember those days when we were crusading against Common Core, 2013, 2014, 2012. We were traveling the country doing this, and one of the things I kept pointing out is that Arne Duncan, Barack Obama's Secretary of Education, made the argument that we're starting to build clinics on our new schools. That what we want to do, this is 2009, Arne Duncan said, we want to start building clinics on our new school construction so kids can get birth control, they can get abortions, they can get transgender blocking puberty hormone therapy, they can get all sorts of things done on campus, and mom and dad do not even have to know. You asked this question. Some of you were chuckling out there, I'm sure, at the beginning of the segment when I said, in a few years, you're not going to be able to stop this. Well, how does that happen? How do you go from being the first responsible person for your own children to not being consulted? Laws like this one in Washington.
I think our schools should be open 12, 13, 14 hours a day. So it's not just lengthening.
So 8 to 8 or something like that?
At home, we attached healthcare clinics to about 24 of our schools. Where schools truly become the centers of the community, great things happen.
The buzzword, it's not the clinics, because that sounds too medical. They're calling it school-based health centers. So if you have a SBHC on your campus, or one that they're talking about, oh, we need to add on and have a SBHC, this is what they're talking about. Literally, it means that if your kid has gender dysphoria, little Sally could march into the SBHC, start taking puberty blockers. Mom and dad, you will not be notified. You will not be notified. The only thing you'll get is the bill, and it's not itemized, so you don't even know what it says. Maybe Sally tells you what it means, but you will not know exactly what is happening medically with your child if this bill passes.
And if it doesn't pass it, be aware of the progressives. Let's say it fails. What are they going to do? Go hang their heads and retreat? No. Well, they'll roll it out again next year and the year after that. Then they'll get Massachusetts to do it, and they'll try to come back and do it in the state of Washington. You're on a cusp, mom and dad, of having your parental rights taken away from you entirely.
All right. According to the bill's summary, it says school districts may enter into agreements with healthcare providers to establish SBHCs for the provision of services exclusively to district students, employees, and employees' dependents. Parents, nope, I did not see the term parents or even guardians in there. Students, employees, and employees' dependents. So that's what we're going with. Now, this is for children as young as 13 who we already know were granted the ability to get physical and mental health services without their parents' consent. And again, that was already in January 2020. So, hey, we begin 2020 with a bill for 13-year-olds to go get medical care, if you call it that. And we end 2020 with, you know what, parents, you don't need to know any of this at all. It's only on them because they're adults at this point.
Yeah, you see where we're beginning 2020, but after 4 years of a Biden administration, good, you got rid of Trump, America, congratulations. Now there is nothing left standing between you and all these changes. Maybe, you think this is the kind of thing? Taking away parents' ability to even to know what schools are doing in terms of healthcare with their kids. Is that the kind of thing maybe we need a Trump tweeting? Is that worthy of your time, America? All you soccer moms out there who couldn't handle Trump because he was so gruff, right? He wasn't a big sweetie pet like Joe Biden in his basement, who literally, you suburban moms who turned your back on Trump so you could get this Biden clown in. Do you really think, here's my question to you, the two stories we've done so far, do you really think that forcing all kids to take hormone therapy, blocking therapy, and schools building clinics and healthcare centers on their campuses where they can give all sorts of radical medical drugs and procedures to your kids without even consulting you, do you think that would be worth a couple of crazy ranting tweets from a president? Might that not be the kind of thing that you would want somebody responsible for looking after at the president level? Because you're not going to get it under a Joe Biden administration.
It's time for some real education. Gerard van Honthorst was a Dutch Golden Age painter who became known for his depiction of artificially lit scenes, eventually receiving the nickname Gerard of the Nights. Early in his career, he visited Rome, where he enjoyed great success painting in the style of Caravaggio. Following his return to the Netherlands, he became a leading portrait painter.
And this is Christmas week here at the Dr. Duke Show, so we've got 3 shows this week. Christmas is on Friday. So for the next 3 days, we're going to give you instant classics dealing with nativity scenes or Christ's birth in art. And this is a good one. Show the picture, Mike. This is Gerard, as Katie pointed out, Gerard van Honthorst's Dutch Golden Age painter, his rendition of the nativity. It's called The Adoration of the Christ Child. It is a 1622 oil on canvas painting of the nativity by the great Honthorst, who was one of the most famous Dutch Caravaggisti. Remember, we have a long style. We have Katie and I have a long-going bromance here with Caravaggio. He's one of our favorite paintings. And the Caravaggisti are those European painters in the wake of the great master Michelangelo Caravaggio who used his technique, and his technique is known as tenebrism, right? Go back to the picture where you have this extreme dark background. The palette, the background is always black. It's not the white canvas. It is always pitch dark. And then you have some really radical source of light. And you have all of the characters in the painting who come, they're either back in the shadows or they have been illuminated by this one light source. This is called tenebrism. It is a hallmark of Caravaggio's work. And Van Honthorst was a Caravaggisti. He was one of the great followers, and one of the perhaps most successful Dutch followers of Caravaggio. And there you see the image, right? You have the Christ child, who is the complete source of light, almost albino white is the Christ source. It's a golden, light golden light that just suffuses not just Christ, but the bed, the manger he lays in, the swaddling clothes that are being peeled back, and as you expose the child, a very frail, very thin child, when you expose this King of Kings, look at how it illuminates particularly the face of the Mother of God. The two figures that are most illuminated by this brilliant light are the Mother of God and the front part of the face of Joseph, who's there on the right with the beard. And his eyes and her face, talk about just complete satisfaction, peace, and happiness. That's always what was meant to be with the coming of Christ. And you see it here. And you've got a second tier, the magi or the shepherds on the left. And then in the back, you have even more people. And you see the levels at which this illumination. And it's a great point that the coming of Christ allows us finally to see truth in darkness. That's what it does. And so what a great figure, what a great image for Van Honthorst to have used the Caravaggisti method.
All right, before we go, just a reminder that the best way to keep up with our various shows over here at Freedom Project is to follow us on Parler. So take a moment and start following at Duke Pesta, at Katie, and at Freedom Project. Now, we want to take a moment, show a little love, especially during Christmas week, to our Patriot Club members. And today, we're going to give a nice big shout out to Heidi from Citrus Heights, California. Heidi, you live currently in the land of Californication, and we feel bad for you. So thank you for supporting us. You have a little bit of hopeful sanity left in you. Now, if you're a fan of the show, please consider a one-time tax-deductible donation this Christmas season, ho, 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 to support our Patriot Club. And we're going to send you a festive, get it, festive red tumbler. It makes for a great Christmas gift, let me tell you. All my family's getting one because I'm that cheap. Now visit patriotclub.us to get signed up and get your tumbler. That's patriotclub.us. Now, as we do, we wrap things up with our fun fact of the day. The understanding of the body's hormones actually began in the 19th century with Graves' disease, which causes swelling of the thyroid. Since that time, doctors have been able to find out many different conditions caused by a hormone imbalance, either too much or too little.
And now we've reached the age where the ignoring of hormones, the actual artificial blocking of hormones, is actually seen in some circles as medically necessary. Strange world. And don't forget, you can take the lid off, turn these upside down, and use them as a Christmas star on top of your tree. How about that? And that's our show for today. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated. Mes amis.